Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Inspiral Gaming Weekly. I'm Daniel, and I'm back with Robert Hodge.
Hey everyone.
This week we'll be talking about what you, as the player, actually do in Dimension Door and what characters you get to play as. But first, let's talk about last week's question of the week. You asked the community what their favorite horror game was. Do you want to talk a bit about what you like?
Yeah, sure. So, currently my favorite horror game is actually called Dead of Winter by Played Hat Games. It isn't really horror in the modern sense of like pop-outs and scary creatures or any blood and gore, though it has some of that in its artwork. Instead, it holds true to the horror of surviving a zombie apocalypse. Throw in a harsh winter and massive distrust in other survivors, and you have Dead of Winter. So, Dead of Winter is a board game all about resource management and rooting out potential betrayers, where players each control their own small group of survivors in the middle of a harsh winter of the zombie apocalypse. Pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'll have to give that one a try. Now that we've gotten settled in, let's put on our bibs and dig into the meat of this week's topic, gameplay and guests. So far, we know that we're going to be stuck in a mansion with some monsters, and that dimension portals are part of it. What do we actually do as the players?
So, Dimension Door is a session-based game. So this means that a group of players will join a matchmaking system, or they can create a custom game just to play with their friends if they want. They'll be in a lobby where they'll choose certain parameters, like their character and starting equipment. Once everyone's ready, the game will start with everyone in the entrance hall of the mansion. Each player will control a character called a guest of the house, or just guest for short. Players will take turns commanding their own guest to perform specific actions each turn. These can be things like simply moving their guest to explore new rooms, or attacking a monster that appeared in that room, or searching the room for items to help that player stay alive. Dimension Door will start off with only one scenario in the base game. The name is still undetermined, but I'm thinking about calling it Lysander's Prophecy to kind of tie in the lore even more. The game's scenario defines how the player will win the game. It'll be, difficult to win on your own, so it requires a lot of teamwork to complete it.
So this is primarily a team-based experience where the players try to fight the computer-controlled monsters?
The main scenario isn't the only way to win. Players will have to be careful to make sure their allies aren't straying off the beaten path towards betrayal. This is where hidden agendas come into play. Guests have two ways of winning. They'll work as a team to complete the scenario objective, or they can go rogue and complete their own hidden agenda, which tends to end in backstabbing. When a player wins with their guest's hidden agenda, only that player wins. Though that's kind of a misnomer. It doesn't prevent others from winning, as long as their win conditions are also met. So there's two types of hidden agendas. Ones that end the game immediately, and ones that only check if the conditions are met whenever the game ends. You have to be careful, though, that a player doesn't complete their game-ending hidden agenda before you do, or you'll lose right then and there. So there's two ways to win, hidden agenda or team scenario objective. But wait, there's more. Yes, this game doesn't suck when you die. You don't have to wait for the game to end just to play with your friends again. I personally hate games that kick people out early and then take forever to end. So we're preventing that with this interesting, cool revenge system. So when you die as a guest of the house, you become what's called a servant of the house. Instead of trying to survive the mansion, you are now trying to help the mansion. So it'll accelerate the game because you become this especially monstrous creature trying to kill the rest of the guests.
Oh, but if we turn into super cool monsters after we die, wouldn't we all just kill ourselves and try to win together that way?
No, that's something we thought about. So yeah, the mansion does want to kill all the guests, and while you're a servant of the house, you also do. However, each servant of the house has a specific win condition that must be completed before you can win with the mansion. So this means that if the game ends because every guest died, and you didn't complete your win condition as a servant, you still lose. So to sum this all up, you'll be playing as a guest of the house on a pseudo team with other guests trying to complete the main objective, but every player has the option of trying to win with their own hidden agenda, which can end the game immediately. And if you die, you don't have to worry because you'll become a servant of the house. a role which has its own set of win conditions, all generally with the purpose of killing other guests, some of which may have backstabbed you and killed you. Yay for revenge!
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool because I don't really like to play cooperatively. I like to stab people in the back and do intrigue and politics between friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, and this system really, really heavily plays on that.
Hopefully, I just don't end up pissing too many people off. Stupid revenge mechanic. So, who are some of the characters that we'll be playing in the game?
So one example of a character you can play his name is Nathan Bennett. He's an electrician. He's one of 16 total characters currently, and we plan on adding more in future expansions.
Are the guests primarily defined by their occupations?
Yeah, so we have 8 categories of occupations, and within these occupations are subsections called expertises. For example, like I said, Nathan Bennett is an electrician. Well, that's his expertise within the engineer occupation. So in the base game, each occupation has 2 expertises to choose from, and we'll obviously expand that once future expansions come out. Each expertise is a different character. So Nathan Bennett is only an electrician. He's not any other kind of engineer. Another past character that we posted, her name is Sylvia Schwartz, whose occupation is the scientist, and her expertise is xenobiologist.
So there will be multiple engineers with specific, like special abilities and stuff like that?
Yeah. Each guest has an ability. So specifically, the overarching occupation actually doesn't govern their ability. It governs which hidden agenda you can choose as that guest. So if we have, let's say, the 2 scientists that we have are the xenobiologist and the archaeologist, they have the same pool of hidden agendas to choose from, despite being vastly different disciplines. So, like I said, occupations govern hidden agenda selection, but expertise determines the specific guest by the name and their image, but also their in-game special abilities. All of their stats also are based on the expertise. So some hidden agendas are in a generic category, though, so that's kind of weird. So that means that any occupation can choose from that pool. So a xenobiologist and an electrical engineer could potentially have chosen the same hidden agenda if it's a generic one, but they'd never actually know because we want to keep that as hidden information in the game. Okay,
so it's not going to be the same hidden agenda for each time you play the game. It's going to change up.
Yeah, you actually choose it. You have a list of things you can choose from, a list of generic ones you can choose from, which everyone can choose from, or each occupation has a very specific smaller pool that they can choose from instead if they wanted to give it this variability, and then you never really know which one they chose, even if you know all of the hidden agendas.
Okay, that makes it a lot more interesting than if there was only one specific hidden agenda. Then you kind of know after playing a couple times what they were doing. All right. I noticed in the engineer's artwork that he had the Sentient Ichor in it, which was our monster of the week. So that sounds like a good segue.
Sure.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so the Sentient Ichor is, as its name suggests, a living fluid-like being. It digests pretty much anything that it engulfs in its body. You won't just disintegrate merely by touching it, but it'll try and grab you and pull it into its core, where that's where its digestive system is, where it will quickly dissolve and feed on, it prefers organic matter.
Okay, but it doesn't like discriminate against metal and stuff like that?
Not at all.
What inspired this monster?
So if you've ever played Dungeons & Dragons, there's a monster, an iconic monster in the game called the Gelatinous Cube. That best resembles the Sentient Ichor. The most apparent difference being simply its shape. But the other difference is the Gelatinous Cube would be considered a semi-solid, whereas Sentient Ichor is more like a semi-fluid, where the only difference between those two physical states are just how viscous that substance is.
Oh, okay. How does it compare with some of the other monsters we've showcased in the past?
So, the Sentient Ichor is much harder to kill. Last week, we discussed the Outer Fiend, which is a demon that messes with the minds of its enemies by engulfing them in darkness. And Well, the Sentient Ichor is an aberration that's even scarier than that. It has this pseudo-invisibility, so unless you're really close to it, you can't even see it because it blends in so well with its surroundings. On top of that, normal weapons not only deal 0 damage to it, but the Sentient Ichor will in fact eat those weapons if they're melee, if it comes in contact with it, like a sword or a mace. Only magic weapons or spells can kill it, it's actually quite weak against those. So to put this into perspective, monsters are separated into 5 categories: aberrations, beasts, demons, humanoid, and undead. The Sentient Ichor is an aberration, which are much more rare and much stronger and scarier than all the other categories.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds kind of like the Predator, how it would like go into its camouflage mode, but then also impervious to actual physical attacks. So, doesn't sound like something I want to mess with on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I'd like to close it out for the week. Our question of the week this week is, what occupation would you like to see represented in Dimension Door as a playable character? So we talked about engineers and scientists in this episode. Just what would you think that would be interesting, and maybe what kind of specialization do you think your character would have? Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week with another installment of Inspiral Gaming Weekly.